Tell us what drives you to serve the city.
So one of the things that I've learned recently is that the perfectionist mentality is kind of unhappy. You can never really find peace because you're always unhappy with something about yourself. So it's not a healthy way to be. But a relentless pursuit of improvement is something that can be a healthy way to look at anything that you want to get better at. And that's kind of the way that I've looked at my time on working on city council and before that planning and zoning, is constantly striving to improve where we live. And not just doing it for us and those of us that live here, but also for our children and grandchildren.
To do that, you've kind of started behind the eight ball, so to speak. I mean, it's like there's already some issues that were not solved before that you've got to work on.
Well, you're right. And one of the things that you find when you take on anything is that there's things that are really good and things that need to be fixed. And we have a great heritage in Sulphur Springs. We have a great city, and those that came before us really did a good job. And for the most part, financially, the city has been very healthy for a while, but there's some things that have not been done, and the city's playing catch up. And one of them is we're really trying to play catch up in replacing sewer lines. And that is something that really in the last couple of years we've tried to step up. And I know the citizens can get frustrated at times when their sewer rates go up, but there's actually a reason. And when that happens, it's because we're really trying to replace some sewer lines that a lot of them are over 50 years old.
And one of those is a very large project that is about to start out around Christus Mother Frances Hospital. Yes,
we have a new hospital group in town, and I really think that they'd be very disappointed if they came in one day. You know, they've already had a problem at the hospital when one of the pipes broke, and then we didn't have access to a large part of the hospital for months. And I think that it would be even worse if the sewer backed up into the hospital, and that wouldn't be a very healthy environment where people try to go to get better.
Right. What are some of the positives that you see of the city of Sulphur Springs that you think we need to push forward?
Well, there are a lot of really great things that have been done, and there are a lot of that are just right on the edge of being accomplished. And one of them is the opportunity that Luminant has given us with this wonderful gift of giving the city that mine property. And there's so many things that we can do with that, and we already have several industries that are looking to move out there, and that is something that would be an asset for the city for years to come. So that's one. And the other would be we have achieved a lot in terms of business expansion along the way. And one of the things, if you just think back just a short 10 years ago, quality of life was never discussed by the EDC with anyone. Now it's one of the primary things that they talk about with businesses that want to come here. And it's all because of all the improvements that have been done downtown. And when a company looks at Sulphur Springs, there's two different types that we could get. One is an expansion, where the powers that be in a company really don't care. They care about the bottom line. Mm-hmm. Where can we put this thing where we can get the biggest bang for our buck? And the owners and the executives aren't coming with the company. But when you talk about a relocation where you have a company that entirely moves or they move their headquarters, the quality of life is extremely important. And one of the things that Roger Figley does at the EDC is the last thing that they do to kind of put the icing when they're making the case for Sulphur Springs is they take them downtown to lunch or dinner and let them just see how great it is down there and how the heart of our city is now a shining part of the, what we have to show off instead of just 10 years ago, where it's really an eyesore.
You've been on the council for how long?
9 years.
9 years.
Yes, sir.
And in that 9 years, a lot of changes have come about. And in the process of that, what are some of the things that you're most thankful for or proud of?
Well, when I ran, I made 3 promises. And this is the first office that I ever ran for. And I'm blessed to be able to say that I've been able to keep all three, which a lot of times people run for office and they really don't understand what they're getting into, and they make a promise that they can't keep. And one of the things that I promised was that I would never support a tax increase. And property taxes were 44 cents a hundred when I started. They're 44 cents a hundred today. And I've been able to keep that promise despite all of the improvements and money that we've spent all over the city. All that's been done without raising property taxes a dime. The other thing that wanted to tirelessly work for economic improvement, and we have done that. We have brought in a lot of businesses. We wish we could bring in some more, but you can always work for the next one. And then the third thing was to work to make the city more citizen friendly. You know, one of the things that can happen with government is people can forget that they exist to serve the citizen and the taxpayer. And I've seen people that work for the government and then they go and they work in the private sector. And it's funny how their attitudes change when their pocketbook depends on what people think about them. And every now and then you just need to give a little bit of a boost and encouragement of reminding people that we're there to serve the citizen. And we have made great strides towards making the city more taxpayer and voter friendly. And an example of that was, you can imagine when we redid that beautiful Carnegie post office or former library and made it the new city hall. Every single employee that has an office in the city wanted to have an office in there. And, you know, we don't have a paid mayor, and the mayor's not full-time, but, you know, I was mayor at the time, and I wouldn't mind having an office in there, but I couldn't. There's no way you could justify that.
Right.
But we made a conscious decision that you would not be in that building unless you had interaction with the public. And if you notice, every single office and department that is housed within that building has something to do with interacting with the public. And one of the things that's nice is you used to have to go all around town to conduct business with the city, and now most of it is between the water department and the police department, which is in the old city hall, and then you've got permitting, the city manager, the city attorney, city secretary, all in one place, and municipal court. In that one building, it's kind of more centrally located.
Which makes this better for the citizen.
It does. It does.
You mentioned the police department, and a lot of work went into the building where they are located, and some other process is following through here with kind of uniting the police and the fire department under one leader, and a lot of people don't understand that. Well,
one of the things that when it comes to doing the budget every year, sometimes you have to make tough choices, and they're not always popular choices, but you have to do the right thing for the city as a whole. And one of the things this year is we had an opportunity to consolidate the position at the top. And most of the time when people have to go through the elimination of positions, it's always the little guy that goes. And in this case, it was the top department head, and we were able to choose which one was best to keep. And the police chief, in this case, was cross-trained. It was most qualified to run the department, so we elected to keep him. And that hasn't been popular, but one of the things that I've pointed out is there's nothing that is written anywhere that says that the director of public safety has to be a policeman, or primarily a policeman. You know, it could be somebody that works their way up through the fire department, and they can get cross-trained in police and they can achieve that position too. But whoever has that position needs to be somebody who is qualified to do both.
When you look at this, basically you looked at it from the standpoint of management and budgeting and this kind of thing within the two departments? That
is correct. And the department head at the top mostly focuses on personnel and budget. And we looked and evaluated, and one of the things that you want to be able to do is still achieve the mission of both departments, and we felt like that we could do that, and that it would be safe for not just the citizens being able to get the services delivered for the either public safety, police, or firefighting and fire prevention, and we made the judgment that we could achieve both.
Still have the same number of individuals within both departments, maybe with the exception of the one?
Yes, I mean, and you're going to have a small amount of turnover in both, but we haven't eliminated any positions in either department, and might actually add. So.
Okay. You mentioned the gift that Lumina is making to the city.
Yes.
That property, that is somewhat of an adventure, I would think, for someone who is going to be on the council.
It is, and it will double the land size of the city, in which you think the possibilities are endless of what we could do with it. And there's a lot of people that worry that we're going to jump in with both feet and spend an enormous amount of money in day one, and you just can't. It's just too big. Mm-hmm. And so, initially what we'll do is we'll pick the low-hanging fruit and work in phases towards developing it and try to put it to the best use for the city.
So what I'm hearing you say that whatever first steps are made are not going to be the only direction that's going to be taken with that property. I know that there's been some talk about some recreational usage for some of that property, but if you do that, that's not locked in stone for the whole property.
It's not, and given the size, in order to be able to put it to its best use in the beginning, we might have whole sections of it that are devoted towards hay production or cattle grazing or something to just get some use out of it before we decide what to do with it.
Yeah.
Because it is, it's not a curse at all, but it is a little bit of a double-edged sword because it is so big and it's such a great gift. And one of the things that it was such a blow, losing the mine and all those good paying jobs that were there and all the ancillary things, businesses that depended on that, and had to lose that, and then to have them turn around and do that for the city, it's just a great thing that Luminet's done.
One of the things that a city has to be is flexible, because industry comes and goes.
Yes.
The usefulness of some businesses come and go, and a city has to remain flexible. Do you see Sulphur Springs as being a flexible community like that?
There was a great deal of effort that went into the development downtown, and there were some business owners that stepped up, and they were first. They were the pioneers. When the first restaurant closed down, there was a little bit of panic there, and hand wringing. Should the city do anything to try to help? And people just took a deep breath and said, the building has still been improved. Another restaurant will move in. The next restaurant to come in will do it differently and maybe have a different formula that attracts more people. And, things change. And that is, the city has been flexible all along the way, and not just on that level. But one of the things that was done, and some of the people are still around that might have done this, but it used to be promoted that this was a good area to build a factory because we were outside of what's called an attainment area, mm-hmm. which means that certain things are allowed to be done that wouldn't be allowed to be done closer to Dallas. And I just don't think that it's a good message to send that relocate your business here because you can pollute more. Mm-hmm. So that is not done anymore, and we want businesses that are going to be good corporate citizens, and we have them. Another thing that we've done is we want this to be a city where our children can come back. And the only way to do that is there has to be a lot of good jobs that pay well. Mm-hmm. And we don't want a company that's going to relocate here that's going to have a whole bunch of jobs that are minimum wage or a little better. We want companies, when we're actually going to go out and chase somebody and incentivize them to be here, there needs to be a wide variety of jobs, and they need to be really good paying jobs to justify the city going out and chasing them. And that way we can continue to improve the quality of life of people here.
You and I are talking on a Wednesday afternoon, so that leads me into this statement that I'm about to make. This morning I posted a story on KSSTradio.com
yes,
regarding first-time home buyers or buying and selling a home.
Okay.
I got a call from a realtor who told me that several years ago, about 70% of the housing in our community was home ownership. that percentage is decreasing. And I've heard some people talking about the necessity of having homes available for people to buy. Is there anything the city can do in regard to that would assist that level?
So part of that is the fault of what is my day job. So in 0809, there was an incredible downturn in the market.
Right.
And one of the things about money is money doesn't go away. It doesn't disappear. It just moves somewhere else. So when that money left the stock market, it was a flight to safety. And then once it was in CDs, money markets, U.S. Treasuries, people soon figured out they didn't like the returns they were getting.
Right.
And so they wanted to go and they wanted to do something out of it. And a lot of that money went into residential real estate. And that's part of what has caused, I think, that the numbers that I've heard are actually reversed, that 60% of the homes in town are rental property. And so one of the, I heard a saying, I've got a friend that's in the oil industry, and they said that one of the cures for low oil prices is low oil prices. Right. So if we have a shortage of homes, that will eventually solve itself by having people that if there's a shortage, people will build homes on spec to fill that need. Right. And that leads us to one other thing, which is a lot of homes have been built recently outside the city limits. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of what the city is trying to do, is we want to encourage more homes to be built inside the city limits. Because one of the things is when homes are built outside the city limits, and I'm not talking about farm and ranch homes or people that want to live on 20, 30, 40, 50 acres, you can't get that type of lifestyle inside the city.
Right.
But neighborhoods, when those are built outside the city limits, it places an enormous financial strain on the county, because that layer of taxation inside the city pays for the services for those homes. So if the city's not doing it, it falls on the county to do that. The other thing is when that home is built inside the city limits, the county still gets their tax revenue on that home, and they don't have to do anything more than what they're already doing for it, which is to provide court services and election services, things like that. But beyond that, they're not having to fix a road that's designed for limited vehicular traffic. Right. That's got 1,000 cars a day driving up and down it, tearing it up.
Right.
So if we can encourage more home building inside the city, it'll fix that problem you brought up, and it'll also help alleviate some of that strain on the county and make the city more healthy at the same time.
One of the things that was talked about when the group was here discussing planning for the future of the city,
yes,
was the empty spaces within the city.
Mm-hmm.
And as we move forward in this planning, is that something the city is going to address? I mean, there's going to be a multitude of things the city will need to address. How focused are you going to be in some specific areas? Well,
most of that will have to be done via incentive. Because if someone owns a large tract of land inside the city limits and they don't want to develop it, let's say they want to run cows on it, there's nothing that we can do to change that. It's their private property, and they can do that if they choose to do it. You would think that eventually, once that land becomes worth a certain amount, they would decide that maybe it needs to be sold to someone that would develop it or develop it themselves. But what we're going to focus on is trying to encourage more development in the city. And one of the things that we can do is traditionally the city does not build streets. Developers build streets, the city maintains them. And traditionally the city does not add new water and sewer lines. We have developers do it, and then they turn it over to the city. You brought up the new sewer lines at the hospital. That whole area there needs water and sewer. And so if we can accomplish both and then make it available for private development, all the better.
Okay. What specifically do you want to say to the residents of Sulphur Springs regarding your campaign and your concerns for the city?
I hope that what I have done in the 3 terms that I've been there on council so far justifies being reelected. However, It's a campaign for a reason. So I will be campaigning. I'll be asking people for their votes. But one thing that I would ask is if you're happy with downtown, if you like the way downtown looks, vote for me. If you like having a new major street replaced every year and every year having the summer paving program improved, vote for me. And if you like that we've done all this without raising your taxes, vote for me. If you want to change a direction, vote for someone else. But I would be honored if people would return me to the city council, and I will continue to do the best that I can. And it's been an honor serving the city so far. And I would love to speak to each one of you if I can and ask you personally for your vote.